Lila was a 48-year-old woman who lived alone in the large house her parents had left her. To make ends meet and keep up with the maintenance costs, she rented out rooms to university students. It was a simple but fulfilling life, until the day David moved in as a tenant. David was a handsome, hardworking 28-year-old pursuing his postgraduate studies while juggling 2 jobs to pay for tuition. Lila was immediately impressed by his work ethic, passion, and charisma. Over the months that followed, they slowly got to know each other better. Lila would sometimes bring David coffee as he studied in the garden on weekends, and they'd chat about his classes and aspirations. When summer arrived and most of the other tenants went on vacation, Lila offered David a part-time job helping with accounting for her small online business. He gladly accepted. Working together every Saturday in Lila's home office, an unspoken attraction developed between them, despite the gap in their ages and life stages. Lila tried to ignore the way her heart raced when their hands accidentally brushed reaching for paperwork, or how she found herself admiring David's handsome features when he was deep in concentration. She chided herself for having such thoughts about someone young enough to be her son. One day, feeling particularly flustered by David's presence, Lila accidentally dropped and shattered a glass while preparing a snack in the kitchen. Startled and embarrassed, she sank into a chair, pulse pounding. David rushed over, kneeling down and taking her trembling hands in his. "Mrs. Lila, are you all right?" he asked, brow furrowed with concern. Lila gazed into his caring eyes, overwhelmed by the electricity of his touch and her own swirling emotions. Before she could stop herself, she blurted out in a choked whisper, "David, I think I'm falling for you." He stared at her, mouth agape, as she continued in a mortified rush. "I know it's wrong. I'm so much older and I'm your landlord. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's gotten into me. Her rambling was cut off as David leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. Lila froze for a heartbeat, mind reeling, before the dam inside her burst, and she returned his kiss with a desperate hunger, hands tangling in his hair. They stumbled to her bedroom, a tangle of roaming hands tugging at clothing, shared breaths, and racing heartbeats. In the afterglow, nestled in David's strong arms, Lila knew she should feel ashamed, but she couldn't bring herself to regret finally surrendering to the desire that had been building for so long. This began a clandestine affair, stolen kisses and passionate lovemaking whenever they could find a moment alone. But David soon moved out to live with a friend, and their relationship fizzled without the forced proximity. Lila's heart shattered the day she ran into David at the supermarket with a stylish young woman on his arm. He glanced away quickly, pretending not to see her. Fighting back tears, Lila returned home to her now empty house. She gazed at her reflection in the mirror, taking in the lines time had etched around her eyes and mouth, the gray streaking her hair. Who had she been kidding, thinking a vibrant young man like David could truly want her? Their affair had clearly been nothing more than a convenient fling for him. Lila made a vow that day never to let herself fall for the charms of a younger man again, no matter how lonely she felt. She threw herself into her work and hobbies, determined to find fulfillment on her own. And yet, late at night, her mind still sometimes wandered back to those blissful moments in David's arms, his smoky voice whispering her name like a prayer. With a sigh, she would roll over and bury her face in the pillow, knowing she would likely never feel so alive again. Years passed, and Lila settled into her quiet, solitary life once more. She still rented out rooms to students, but was careful to maintain strict boundaries, not allowing herself to get too friendly or familiar with any of them, lest she be tempted to let her guard down again. Occasionally, she would hear bits of news about David through the grapevine. He had graduated with top honors, landed a prestigious job, and was steadily building a successful career. Lila felt a bittersweet mix of pride and regret, wondering what might have been if things had gone differently between them. One crisp autumn day, there was a knock at Lila's door. Puzzled as to who it could be since she wasn't expecting anyone, she opened it to find David standing on her porch, as handsome as ever in a well-tailored suit. Lila's heart leapt into her throat. "David," she managed to say, "what are you doing here?" He smiled sheepishly. "Hi, Lila. I was in town for a work conference and I needed to see you. Can we talk?" Lila hesitated for a moment, old wounds throbbing, but eventually stepped aside to let him in. They sat awkwardly in the living room, a palpable tension hanging between them. "I've thought about you a lot over the years," David began, eyes downcast. "About what we had, how I left things. I was young and stupid. I got scared of how intensely I felt for you, scared of what people would think of our age gap. So I ran. And I've regretted it ever since." Lila absorbed his words in stunned silence, scarcely daring to breathe. David finally met her gaze, his eyes shining with sincerity and unshed tears. "Lila, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. I was just too immature to realize it at the time. But I'm here now asking for a second chance. I understand if you tell me to get lost, if I'm too late, but I had to try. Because the truth is, I love you. I think a part of me always has." Tears spilled down Lila's cheeks as relief, joy, and lingering hurt battled within her. She had dreamed of David saying those words for so long, had yearned for him to come back to her. And yet, "How do I know you won't leave again?" she whispered. "How can I trust you with my heart after you shattered it?" David reached for her hands, holding them tightly. "I know I have a lot to prove. I know I need to earn back your trust. But I promise I'm not going anywhere this time. I'm ready now, truly ready to build a life with you, if you'll have me." Slowly, tremulously, Lila nodded. "We'll have to take things slow," she said softly. "But yes, I think I'd like to try again." David's answering grin was brighter than the sun as he gathered her into his arms, peppering her face with kisses. They clung to each other and wept, marveling at the universe giving them a second chance at love. In the months that followed, they worked hard to heal old wounds and forge a new relationship built on honesty, communication, and mutual respect. They endured some raised eyebrows and wagging tongues regarding their age difference, but paid the naysayers no mind, too wrapped up in their own blissful bubble. Exactly 1 year after their reunion, beneath a canopy of fall leaves in the backyard of the house where they fell in love, Lila and David exchanged vows in an intimate ceremony attended by close friends and family. As they kissed to seal their union, Lila reflected on the winding path that had brought them here. Their love story had been far from conventional or easy, but it was theirs, and it had been more than worth the wait. As the years went by, Lila and David settled into the comfortable rhythms of married life. They converted Lila's house into their shared home, undertaking renovations together to make it a reflection of their combined tastes and style. David's youthful energy and modern sensibilities breathed new life into the old house, while Lila's timeless elegance and nesting instincts made it a true home. They both continued to thrive in their respective careers, David rising through the ranks at his firm and Lila expanding her online business. They were each other's biggest cheerleaders, celebrating every win and supporting each other through any challenges. Coming home to one another at the end of each day, sharing a meal and talking and laughing long into the night was the highlight of their lives. For a long time, it was more than enough, just the two of them. But as Lila watched David dote on their friends' children, saw the wistful way he smiled at passing babies in the supermarket, she began to yearn for something more. One evening, snuggled up together on the porch swing watching the sunset, Lila turned to David and said softly, "What do you think about starting a family?" David's eyes widened, and a slow, wondering smile spread across his face. "Really? You want to have a baby with me?" Lila nodded, grinning. "I know I'm a bit older than the average new mother, but I'm healthy and I think we're ready. I love you so much, and I would love to create a life that's part you and part me. If it's something you want too, that is." In answer, David crashed his lips to hers in a searing kiss, then peppered her face with smaller kisses until she giggled. "Of course it's something I want," he said hoarsely. "I would love nothing more than to have a child with you, Lila. Let's make a baby." They threw themselves into trying to conceive, tracking Lila's cycle and making love frequently. Months went by with no success, and they began to worry, mindful of the increased difficulty of achieving pregnancy in one's late 40s. Tests eventually revealed that Lila's egg reserve and quality had diminished significantly with age. Dejected, they started to explore alternatives like IVF with donor eggs. The process was emotionally and physically taxing, not to mention a financial strain. Their first attempt failed, leaving them devastated. After allowing themselves some time to grieve, they decided to try once more, praying for a miracle. When the pregnancy test finally displayed 2 pink lines, Lila burst into happy tears as David whooped and spun her around the bathroom. The pregnancy was considered high risk due to Lila's advanced maternal age, so they proceeded with extra caution and care. David pampered her endlessly, attending every doctor's appointment and catering to her every craving and comfort. When little Olivia finally entered the world, wailing and pink and perfect, they both wept openly, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. Life with a newborn was exhausting but wonderful. They took to parenting like ducks to water, completely besotted with their daughter. Olivia was the center of their universe, their greatest joy and proudest accomplishment. Watching her grow and learn and reveal her personality was endlessly fascinating. On Olivia's first birthday, after the party guests had departed and she was soundly asleep, Lila and David slow danced in the kitchen, clinging to each other. "Thank you for building this beautiful life with me," David murmured into Lila's hair. "Thank you for being such an incredible husband and father," Lila replied, kissing him softly. "I never dreamed I could have all this. You've made me happier than I ever thought possible." They swayed together, marveling at the profound love that had regenerated their lives and given them their heart's deepest desire. It hadn't been an easy road by any means, but it had led them here, to this perfect moment of pure joy and contentment. No matter what the future held, they knew they could face anything as long as they had each other and the family they'd created together.